Hi, I'm Sherri,
I'm Lana.
and this is Real Estate Tips with SNL.
Sherri, I'm going to be asking you questions today.
Ooh, I'm in the hot seat,
You are.
but I have company.
Yes. So I have Jessica here and Chris, and they are current client and past client of mine. And we're going to just go through some questions about the buying selling process. And I'm going to put Jessica in the hot seat first. So you're currently looking for a home.
Yes.
Why and what came up that you said, I want to go buy a house?
So we were coming to the end of our living arrangement, and my husband had moved to Mass, got a job in Mass. I came down, we got married, and we're just looking for our first home here.
And you came down
From Canada.
Canada.
Yes,
Have you
Canadian.
owned a home before?
Yes, I did own a home in Canada.
In Canada.
Yeah.
So while you're just starting this process,
Mm-hmm.
are you finding it different than?
Yes, I did new construction at home, so I didn't really, it was no work. It was just kind of picking out what I wanted it to look like, really. And at the time, it was easy for us to get our mortgage, and everything kind of just fell into place. So it was a lot different than here and now.
So what do you find? So here you are starting out. What do you find is the biggest challenge right now? Now, you haven't secured a home yet, right? We haven't got an offer accepted yet. What do you think is or a few of the biggest challenges you're facing in today's market?
Definitely the options that we have in our price range. And I consider us a pretty normal couple in relation to finances.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we have a good budget, but I just find that we're in a bracket where it's obviously super competitive and not a lot of houses. And I personally feel like the houses that should be in that price range are going for more because of the demand. So I find like we don't have a lot to choose from. The houses that are in that tax bracket, regular like financial bracket, they're small, and we don't want small. And it's not necessarily small. We just need a yard and a garage, and there's no options for that.
So when you first said, we're going to start looking for a house, and you got your pre-approval process, was that challenging? Was the pre-approval process?
Yes, because I'm not included, because I don't have 2 years of work history here yet. So I have a credit score and it's decent, but they still won't take me into an account. So it's just Christopher's finances that are being considered.
Okay.
Which is fine, because it's what we wanted to spend anyways. We got approved for because his credit's great. But yeah, that was one challenge. Like, I can't be included in that at all, unfortunately.
Because you feel more comfortable at the price point where they approved you for, where you might have gone a lot higher, and then you're like,
right. We could have gone a lot higher, but I don't think we would have, just because of the monthly payment, just how we don't really live beyond our means. Like, we've got a pretty good system going, and we don't want to pay too much monthly.
So one other thing, and then I'm going to hit Chris with some stuff. When you started looking, did you have like just a couple of towns, or did you have a big radius? Like, what did you find that changed or didn't change? Or
we had a pretty big radius, and we still weren't finding anything. Mind you, we started in January, so it was a little slow. But now we're just considering going even further, because we don't necessarily want to be in a city. We do a lot of hiking, outdoor activities. So for us to be rural, it just makes more sense for our lifestyle. And we know that there's better options out there.
So my key thing is always helping buyers with their lifestyle. I love hearing what do you do for fun, and not just about 2 bedrooms, a bath, and a garage, right?
Right.
So are you finding that you are finding homes that fit your lifestyle, or you're finding that you are kind of have to settle?
I think we're settling.
Well,
in
hopefully
some
you are
sense.
not going to have to. And the reason that I say that is now we're gearing up for spring market. I'm definitely noticing newer listings hitting the market every day. And interest rates are starting to drop. So that's going to help your buying power as well. So, sometimes things happen for a reason.
Right.
And, it might just be that the timing was off and your future home is just around the corner.
So just before I go to Chris, do you find this process frustrating? Do you find it still exciting that you're looking for a home? Like, what is your emotion on it?
Frustrating. My opinion of it is frustrating. It's just frustrating because like you look at yourself as like a person that's like doing good.
Got it.
I'm sure you agree. And it's just like, it's just tough. Like it's still tough.
Yeah.
Like, and it's annoying. But when we go see houses, it does come back. Like the spark does come back because then you start thinking, oh, we could do this, we could do that. So the excitement is still there. It's just the process of looking, really.
And maybe just the lack of inventory.
Right. Inventory. Yeah.
Okay. You bought and sold a couple years ago.
Mm-hmm.
What were you thinking when you wanted to sell and wanted to buy? Tell me that whole process.
Still a competitive market then, too.
Yeah. So tell us when.
It was extremely competitive. So I bought my first house in 2015 or 2016 for a price that was in the 100,000s.
Insane.
And, I was single and I felt like I was putting like my entire financial future at risk, and it felt really risky and really scary when I was doing it alone. And then fast forward 6 or 7 years into the middle of COVID, and my house was in Fitchburg, and there was a lot of people moving from the city.
Yes.
And they were trying to get land for their dogs and adopting dogs, and the market in Central Mass just went insane. And we were looking at the market, and we were knowing that this house wasn't our forever home, and we knew we wanted something bigger because at that point I was with my partner, and it just felt like a crazy time, and it felt like it was maybe the time to sell because we knew that if we cashed out of this house, we'd be able to put a ton of money into our next house. So we called Lana, and the price that she was estimating our house to sell at it felt overwhelming, and we had put a ton of work into the house in Fitchburg, and it looked great, and it was definitely the time.
Wait a minute. Overwhelming meaning it was not a good price?
No,
it was, I think, way more than double. The value of the house more than double.
Than what you what you thought or expected.
Yep. And the house that I purchased, we put a ton of work into it, but it was kind of a hybrid renovation. So I did a ton of the work myself.
Yeah.
And then for some of the things like the heating system and the central air that needed to be replaced, like we hired out. So we saved a lot of money in the process of renovating, and we spent a little bit of money. So it's not like the amount of money that we put in was even a factor in the price we were listing the house for.
This is why people need to be buying houses and starting. You're building financial equity in a home that this was your first home, not your forever home. You bought it in the 100,000. So maybe you feel like you're settling today, but you might just be getting started.
Right.
People aren't hanging on to homes for 20 and 30 and 50 years anymore.
Right.
It's 5 to 7 years. And then you've got that down payment towards the next move up house.
Yeah. And so think about this. When you bought that house for in the $100,000 range, did you even think once that, I'll never be able to get my money? You probably were just nervous that never even thought it would increase because you're not thinking equity building, are you?
At that point, no. So my parents built their house in the early 80s. My grandfather was a contractor, so they never really had much of a mortgage, and they still live there. So they've been there for over 40 years. So my experience working with a realtor when I bought my first house was the first time. And I never thought about equity. And, what I was thinking about was single income and, what if I lose my job?
Right.
And I was still new to my career at the time. But after rooms started finishing, and the teal walls started to get painted and the carpet started to get replaced, I started to think about wow, this is a place where I could either stay, rent, I was considering renting, or sell for good money. So.
Now, before we started recording, you mentioned that you were looking in New Hampshire also, and so you're just looking to go right over the border. And
Yeah, so my partner works in Bedford, New Hampshire, and I work in Sudbury, Mass. So our workplaces are 80 something miles apart from one another.
yeah,
And most of our family lives in the southern New Hampshire area. So when we first started looking for our next house, we were thinking that we'd end up in northern, central, or southern New Hampshire. And we were looking in Brookline and Hollis and all of those towns. But we ended up in Lunenburg, which was kind of a good compromise, I think. So.
and I think the best comment, and I'm going to make you repeat it, was the reason why.
Yes.
You said that you preferred working with Lana.
I did, yeah. So we had a great experience when we were selling, and there was a short gap between selling the house in Fitchburg and buying our house in Lunenburg. And Lana are you still not certified in New Hampshire to sell? So she set us up with a real estate agent, and it just wasn't a good fit. Lana is just very good at explaining the nitty gritties, and I'm a numbers guy, and we were talking about spreadsheets earlier too. Like everything is in a spreadsheet, and it's a lot of money that you're spending.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I really wanted to understand it all.
Yeah.
And I felt like every time I met with the agent in New Hampshire, I would just leave more confused than when I started. And I said to my partner, I said, we're going to buy in Massachusetts. And he was certain that we were going to end up in southern New Hampshire. And he's like, do you think we're going to end up in Massachusetts because of Lana? And I'm like, yes. And it happened that
And because of Lana.
I said she's very influential. Yeah.
And I'm really not just saying that. I just
you.
feel like you really need to understand every step. And sometimes understanding a certain step takes hours. And I'm sure you have clients that are constantly calling you and don't understand, and you're looking for new ways to explain things to them. And you don't shut them down, and you really take the time.
Thank you.
Which I think this also speaks to the importance of being matched with the right real estate
Absolutely.
agent. And it might be that New Hampshire agent is perfect for another buyer. Sometimes it's just the meshing of the personalities, and you've got to find the right fit.
Right. Maybe a more experienced buyer would have been great, for her.
Or agent.
And just the piece of knowing that if it doesn't fit, it's okay to go find another agent.
Yes.
It's not like you're stuck with the agent. If it's not working, it's no different than, if you're working with a doctor or an accountant or
Right.
somebody
Yeah,
that
yeah,
it just
yeah.
doesn't fit. Like, why are you going to do that? You're going to go crazy. So bring me back now. And thank you so much. That was so nice of you. I am taking new clients. My commercial. So, take me back now. You're listing the house to sell, and now you're also buying a new one. Stress? No stress? Was it frustrating? Was it most exhilarating?
I love it. I really like the experience.
Yes.
And a lot of people like roller coasters and thrill rides, and I do not. But the process of buying and selling a house is the kind of thrill that I like. I really like the process of moving.
Wow.
I love the process of renovating and
Yeah, you do.
Renovating's
designing.
fun. I
And
love.
so buying a new house is like a blank slate. So very fun. So when we listed our house in Fitchburg, it was the week before we were going on vacation to Napa, and you set us up. You set us up with a online portal where when somebody scheduled a showing, I got a text.
Yep.
And when we were boarding the plane, I was like, "Oh, this is great! For every text, we're going to have a glass of wine." And about 2 hours after we landed in Napa, I had probably 250 texts with
You must have been
showings
hammered.
and whatever. And I was like, okay, we have to put that aside because that's not going to be beneficial.
Maybe you should just
not
had a
good for
sip.
the-
Yeah,
tiny
that's it for each
Yeah.
one.
Well, we weren't sure. I mean, we'd never done that before.
Yeah, of
So,
course.
when we were first getting the couple of showings, it was exciting. And then honestly, by the fourth day of the vacation, there were hundreds of showings.
That's crazy.
It was crazy.
Good for you.
It's nice that you weren't there to deal with it.
Yeah.
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 Well, and there was a snowstorm in the middle of it. So
Oh boy. Yeah.
No pressure on my end
Yeah.
while they were gone to sell the house.
I know,
None
I
at
know.
all. But go ahead.
Before we
yes.
left on vacation, I said to my brother, I was like, we're going to be on vacation. The house is going to be for sale. And if it snows, we're not sure what's going to happen. You need to come down and clear the driveway. And he was like, it's 2 weeks away. It'll be fine. And then we got 18 inches of snow. So it all worked out. I definitely think that having a gap between selling and buying is the way I would do it again. So we're lucky where we have family that allowed us to stay with them for a month or two in between.
Yeah, because you don't have that condition of selling.
Right.
Before,
And in the market we were buying in, people weren't even looking at offers with a sale contingency. I mean, people weren't even looking at offers with inspections. Like they would literally just put those offers aside.
Yep.
And I did when we were presented with the number of offers that we got on our house. Like we put the inspections in one pile and we looked at the cash offers first and kind of the most aggressive offers first.
Right.
So
home sale contingencies are tough. And there's so many pieces to it because, is there a home sale contingency, but you have your home under agreement and you're, this close to closing, your buyers already have mortgage commitment, then you're just about there. Or do you have a home sale contingency because you wanted to find a house first and then list your house after?
Right.
And that's the tricky one. A thing that I'm finding a lot of my clients are doing is they're researching bridge loans and, just seeing, even if it's just a matter of closing a week apart, you mentioned having that little window of opportunity, but I've had one just recently that closed on their purchase 1 week prior to closing on the sale of their home. And that gave them 1 week to move out, go back and clean, take care of those last minute things that you think, instead of being so stressed because you're trying to do it all, within hours of closing on 2 properties.
I think it's interesting how your emotion is excited about selling and buying, even at the same time, which is great. And you're struggling with frustration. I'm going to get that emotion up. That's my job now that I know for sure.
It'll take you hiking.
Yeah.
But it's really interesting because there's so many different ways when people prepare. They put on their house on the market. They say subject to relocation. Now they go find something where you had a little bit more comfort with that, knowing that you're just going to go in with family. And that's always who has a plan B? Maybe I even said that to you. Do we have a plan B, plan C? Do we have something? Because during that time when you went on the market, it was super busy. I mean, we talked about the showings.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting to hear that. And I hope that people understand there's other alternatives, not just having to move out and go in. There's a bridge loan opportunity. And again, it's talking and feeling comfortable with not only the real estate agent, but also the lender. So your team has to be on board. All right, over there, Miss Sherri.
Yes. Go ahead,
You
interviewer.
are relocating.
I am.
You are going downward.
I'm going south.
You're going down.
south, y'all. I'm going to be enjoying that.
All right. So you're in this current market, where he was in a different market selling. So talk to us about what you're feeling and what the pressures are, and maybe you're excited about it. Tell us your emotions.
I think that, it's about planning. Yes, my spreadsheet. Trying to chip away a little bit at a time so that you're not doing everything all at once. Not everybody has that luxury. Sometimes people are relocating for work or whatever the reason is, and they need to get their house on the market in a matter of days. We've had weeks to put things together, and one of the things that I did is we had on the move mobile storage here. Dan and Tim, yes, they were our guests. So I did reach out to them, and I've actually got one of their containers coming to my house. So before I list, the things that I don't want in the house are going to be loaded on one of these containers and sent over to their yard, so that it just, we live one way, we show our houses a different way.
Yeah.
You're trying to minimalize and not make it feel quite so cluttered. And even just packing boxes that I all too often I see them loaded up in a basement or a garage because people are just trying to find a spot to, put them. And I'm going to put them on the container and have them out of the way.
We did the same thing. We
Great to have.
We had it dropped, and then we were able to just pack up on our own time.
Yeah.
Guest rooms were the first things that we packed up, and things that we didn't need.
Great
and
option.
It was great. Yeah.
Oh yes. Yeah. And I'll tell you, on the move is they're reasonable rates. I mean, I'm pretty excited about it. But when we're ready to move, they'll come back and we'll fill it the rest of the way. So,
So are you planning on having your house completely vacant when it goes on the market?
no,
Okay.
no, I'm just minimalizing.
Got it. So what is the process of relocating like to go down south? How is that? Is it frustrating? Is it easy? Is it hard? There's a lot more planning?
Exciting. It's
Great.
very exciting. I think that for us, we bought our home a couple years ago, and this was sort of preparing for the future. We're making this move sooner than we expected, just because of changes in our situation. But now, I already have a place to go to. So,
Right.
I would say it might be different if I was trying to, find that place at the same time. We are, definitely blessed that we were able to do this in this order. But we are downsizing. We are going to the smaller one-level retirement type of community. So, but we already have furniture down there. And not fully furnished, so that container is going to have some of the rest of the furniture and the personal items to bring there. But now we find ourselves trying to figure out, what are we going to do with the lawnmower or the snowblower? We're going to get rid of that thing. Can't wait. So, and a lot of the furniture and donating items and just things that we need to do ahead of time.
I feel like that's the hardest thing when I talk with sellers is when they say, well, how can I get my house ready? And I feel like it's more about getting your stuff ready.
Getting yourself ready.
Right.
Yeah.
Because the house is, you're going to see things as you're packing up and moving your stuff or taking down things. Oh, I forgot there was a hole in the wall or something. Or, oh yeah, I burned the candle over there. But I feel like when I go into the houses, it's more just about like, let's get yourself organized and your stuff. Right. And then everything else kind of shows up,
Well, I always tell my clients, you're going to have 3 piles. You're going to have your keep, your donate, and your trash. And I think it's just, I think we have a hard time parting with things that we think have value that is really more personal, and most likely that belongs in the trash pile, and you have to be willing to let go of some of those items. Again, another guest that we had on our show was, home staging by Julie. And I loved one of the tips that she provided about sort of thinning out your closet. If you've got clothes in there that you haven't worn in a while, to get rid of these things. And she suggested turning your hangers around. And then when, if it's been a couple of months and they're still turned around, you haven't worn these things, it's time to get rid of them.
It's my favorite thing to do, get rid of things. I love it.
Oh, yeah.
Live for it.
The clothes is the hardest part for me. Things I'm not as stuck on, but yeah.
So looking back, and it's only been a couple of months for you. Looking back, is there anything that now hearing just a little bit of what we're talking about, is there anything that you think that you would have changed in your approach to start your buying process?
I don't think so. Maybe we probably should have considered further out at the beginning and considered our options. Like we were just in an area for his drive to work. Yeah. Really, we wanted to minimize his drive to work. But now that we're considering the benefits of being further out, the drive to work doesn't really matter. It's such like a web of like balancing everything of what you want and what means more. And
do you feel, and pretend I'm not here, do you feel that there was help with having a real estate agent?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
What was some of that?
To piggyback off Chris, when we left from meeting you, I was like, there's no one else, like, obviously.
What did you get from it,
I think we clicked. Like I like you as a person more, again, obviously you're knowledgeable, but like you're super easy to get along with. You're quick, you're on the ball. I always tell my husband, Christopher, she doesn't get back to me until she has answers. And I like that. There's no like, oh, I'll send an email, I'll do a call. It's like, no, she's already sent the email and she's already made the call. That's one of my favorite things about you. So I think having a realtor has definitely helped in that aspect. And also like just with different situations, like you mentioned appraisal gap, like just everything's come up for us. Like every situation, it feels like we've had to like touch on at least as a possibility. And I didn't know anything of that, of any of it. Well, my husband's maybe a little bit more knowledgeable with some of that kind of stuff, but certain things like I want explained to me by someone else other than him, you know?
Sure, even real estate in Canada versus the United States.
And even just like Title V, right?
Yeah, exactly.
The whole thing about like, you know, I don't, you know, just the little details of it.
Yeah.
Because it's challenging as real estate agents not to go blah, 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 give you everything, because it's like too much, you get glazed eyes, right?
Yeah.
And then enough to get you there. But you're right. You're probably currently now in the market where we're adding things here and there, where before there was nothing written in the offers because you needed them super clean.
Right.
Like, don't put anything in this. You just want the house. And now we're trying to, you know, add some more things and make it still appealing, though you're still asking for things as a buyer.
Right.
Yeah. How about you? Looking back, anything that you think that you would have changed, or you think it would have been a little different?
So I think that we landed in the right place and we love our house and we wouldn't have changed any of that. However, like in the process of looking for our house, there were a few houses that we saw and that we considered putting offers in on that, looking back, hindsight being 2020, we wouldn't have been thrilled about being there in the long term.
That's a very good point.
I think that and I think that there was more pressure on us in that market.
Oh, right.
And there were things were just selling so fast that we felt like we needed to be competitive. And I definitely would suggest to anybody to just like really slow down and like make sure. I mean, I think that any of the houses we put offers on, we would have really liked. But once we saw our house in Lunenburg, we were like, okay, we're really happy that even though we were so disappointed then, we're really happy that those offers fell through.
Don't you agree that when you get like, so I bought, right? And I've sold and I've done all that. But don't you, when you walk into a house and you really like it and then you walk away, you're like, oh, I'm like really going to be sick of this. You know it's the right house because it's makes you so nervous that you're like, okay, what if I can't do it? But I love it. What if I don't know? And you're getting all that. But
I just totally agree.
Taking a breath and not saying, quick, we got to put an offer in, but just taking a little bit and just driving back by, or just saying, wow, I went and sat on the backyard of the house after I decided, I'm like, I think I'm going to put an offer in this.
You're the car that goes by at midnight. You're wondering what's going on with this car that keeps circling the neighborhood.
So I have two thoughts about what you just said. So the first house that I bought in 2016, it was a disaster. Like an older person had lived there and it hadn't been updated since like the 60s or 70s. And there was something about that house when I walked into it. And I had only seen 2 houses at that point, you know, and I wasn't even 100% certain I was going to buy something. And I like knew right away. And it all worked out. And, you know, it was a big stepping stone to be in the house that we're in now.
That's a very good point, though. Sometimes you don't have to see 50 houses to know the one. It might be the first house that you walk through. Yeah. And I think people are always second guessing. But if you've got that emotion, because let's face it, a house that we're going to live in is an emotional draw. And you're either doing this because you can see yourself living there for a number of years, or you're not going to buy it.
Yeah.
And then the second thing I wanted to say too was that we were considering eliminating some of the non-negotiables that we had when we were going in to buy the second house. So we really wanted a 2 or 3 stall garage. And there was a couple of houses that we looked at that didn't have garages. And we're like, well, maybe down the road we could add one. And I'm really happy that we didn't go for something that didn't have exactly what we wanted. Central air and a 2 or 3 stall garage were like really the top of our list. And then, you know, everything else was extra. But there were a couple of houses that we considered putting offers in on that didn't have either of those things. And we stopped ourselves and we're like, what are we doing?
I'm so glad you brought this up. I'm going to share a quick little story, and I've shared this in my video resume before. I had a buyer who has had a low budget, and I'm out in the boondocks of Massachusetts, and I said, you know, nothing worked. Everything was just too small or whatnot. And he always jumped in his pickup truck and left for the day, you know, after we looked at a property. We'd go all the way out there, schlep out there, and then it didn't work. And so at the end of one of the showings, I said, well, what are you going to do? I'm sorry, it doesn't work out. Where are you going to go now? He goes, well, I'm going to find a place to drop my kayak in, or canoe, canoe. And I go, wait a minute. You carry that around because you go find places for it? Why aren't we looking waterfront? He goes, I can't afford waterfront. I'm like, you haven't given me a chance yet.
Yeah.
I said, if that's something you don't want to settle for, within a couple of weeks, we found not waterfront, but we found a property that gave him deeded rights to just walk over with his canoe. He put a second floor on the house because it was a lower budget for him. He's in a community of a lake area, and he was floored that he would be able to find it. But I think that comes back to everyone is such a rush, right? So, okay, you start out in the month of January, nothing comes on. Okay, well, don't panic.
Right.
Go take a weekend and go enjoy yourself and come back. And next thing you know, there's going to be 2 or 3. Like you even said, wow, this week there was a bunch of new ones on, right?
Yeah.
So taking a breath and realizing, listen, I don't want to sacrifice that because you know how much that garage is going to cost now? I just built a garage and it's not cheap. So I try to tell my clients, try not to give up on at least top 2 things. Mm-hmm. And if the top 2 things are pretty expensive, definitely don't, because you're not going to go back to it, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it does take time, but some people can find something in one visit. Mm-hmm. And some people, it's going to take 6 months. I had one buyer, no lie, 9 years we stuck it out together.
Oh my
9
gosh.
years.
Wow.
They do Coldwell Banker training on this now because of her. Yes.
Yeah, thank goodness you met me after the fact because, I didn't do such a great job on that one. No, but people, they take breaks. This is not going to work for me this year. There's nothing coming together. I don't feel it. But come back into it because, like you said, you're not sure, that would have been maybe your thought that this is going to be my forever home. I got to fix it up. Your first one, right? Then you go to another one. Then you're going to move on. You don't have to move on, but don't settle every single time. Maybe you have to in an interim situation. But, I mean, look at in Florida. The only thing that you don't have is what you're getting.
My swimming pool. It's
Yes.
coming. It's coming. It's coming.
And
yeah.
I have to say, like, as somebody who didn't have a huge budget in the first place in 2015, 16, I think that my philosophy on buying a house has not changed. Like, there's so much that's changed in my life, but like, we found a house with good bones that needed some updates, that needed things that we could do and things that, we had a little bit of experience with, like a heating system and all that.
Yep.
And the same thing with our house in Lunenburg. Like, it was really dated. We did a ton of cosmetic things. We put in a pellet stove. In Fitchburg, we finished the basement.
Yeah, I know.
And that was like
beautiful.
huge. And I'm going to talk to you at the end of this podcast. We want to finish the room over our garage in Lunenburg. And like, I would never buy a house personally, I would never buy a house that's just completely done.
Agreed. It's advantageous.
It's
to
like
be
sweat
able to do
equity.
that.
There's nothing I enjoy more than spending, a few months on the weekends finishing a bathroom or doing something over and just like knowing how much value that adds to that.
That's
that
like
house.
us too.
People
totally agree.
need not to be afraid, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of consumers, as we know, a lot of them that just freak out if there's any cosmetic stuff. But cosmetic is probably like the easiest.
Yeah.
Paint goes a long way. Ripping up flooring and putting a new floor, long way.
Yeah.
But you do have buyers that don't want to do a single thing. They want it absolutely, move
Bling,
in
bling.
ready and needs nothing. And then there are others who want to kind of own that. I remember our first house, we had this burnt orange shag rug carpet that the house had been vacant for a while. I'm not going to lie to you. There were like skeletal remains of mice in the
Did you keep the carpet and you shampooed it?
That carpet was out before we had moved in, and definitely our siding. We had this bright yellow siding. You could see our house from space. It was.
I bet you when you were done with it, you made money on that house. And I bet you made a lot of it.
I don't know. The ex-husband's still in it, but it was exciting. I mean, it took us 14 years to finally do the kitchen. I mean, we chipped away as things as we could afford them, but it was fun because we have the before and the after, and you're owning every improvement that you've done
That you couldn't do in a rental.
100%.
That you would
Yes.
not, you would be just settling in a rental and
No.
sitting there twiddling your thumbs, wishing, gosh, I wish I had, well, but it's not going to happen. How about you? Are you anything that you can think about that you would do different for your relocation?
Geez, I might have to hire Lana.
Wow.
Oh, geez. No, I think, I mean, obviously being in the business, I'm well versed on how to prepare, and it's just that now I get to, wear those shoes that often my clients are the ones that are doing this, and I'm just guiding them along the way. So hopefully I take my own advice.
Yeah.
So.
Well, you've done a great job. I've seen the house. It's amazing.
Thank you.
All right. To wrap up, I would just like any advice that you think you could, even a quick little slogan or something that you give somebody that's just thinking of selling or buying, both relocating, some kind of advice that you would give.
I think, like I touched on before, like you have to weigh out like your needs and your wants, and like what you're willing to be a little bit more forgiving in, and what you're steadfast on, what you don't want to give up. I think that's important to know, because you have a lot of decisions to make, obviously, and situations like, I don't know, your perfect house might come up and it's just something's absolutely terrible with it. Like, are you willing to deal with it or not? So I think that's really important.
Good.
I feel like I'm kind of going against my advice and maybe even going against that a little bit. But my brother-in-law and my sister-in-law are in the next year starting to look for their forever home. They're in a starter home. And my brother-in-law was saying, he's like, it's so frustrating. I use the realtor apps and I filter what I want. I want multiple acres. I want 3 stalls. I want this and that. And everything's $2 million. And I mean, their budget's not far away from that.
Okay,
they have a higher budget than I would ever have, right? But still, like, not what he's willing to spend. And I was like, I'll have to tell you, like, I love real estate. I still look at houses every day on the apps, and I've never once used a filter. I mean, the only filter I would use is particular towns or locations.
True.
Because you never know what you're going to find. And it might seem like a lot of work at the beginning to put in that really expensive garage, but if the house is 1/8 of your budget,
exactly,
and it's in the right location,
right?
Like, why couldn't you do that? Like, that's exciting, and it's going to look exactly the way you want it to look. So I was telling them, I'm like, don't filter. Just like look for your locations and find something that's a diamond in the rough and make it the way you want to make it, or buy that finished house. Right. But I would not really filter yourself down.
I agree with the
not
filter.
Seeing
I agree with the
houses
filter.
that are, not the right size. I mean, when everything's said and done, maybe like a huge office becomes that third bedroom that you're looking for, or whatever. But yeah,
that's great advice. And I'll tell you, these websites, they're all drawing off of MLS.
Yes.
So we're putting information into MLS, but the fields are not exactly the same. So sometimes these third-party websites aren't dissecting,
taking the information,
taking the information in. And
Correctly.
I had one just recently that I was contacted by a buyer who said, hey, I'm on this third-party website and it says that this house is waterfront and I don't see the water. And I'm like, it's not waterfront. And I went back to MLS, and on the field where it says waterfront, it says no.
Yeah.
And I went to the website, and sure enough, it says it's waterfront. So, now, what if it were the other way around? When you're saying I only want waterfront, and you put in this filter on a third-party website that is not accurately, providing that information. So
it's a really good idea, because when I talk to people, and I think I've asked you, Jessica, when I was saying, what are you looking for? I would say, so give me some things, what kind of house and blah, blah, blah. And I'm actually clicking, but when they say they want 2 baths, I don't put 2 baths, because 1.5 you're going to miss out on.
Yeah.
You're going to miss out on that potential, or there's plumbing already there. Like, you're not going to see that stuff, right? I understand if you need at least a square footage, if it's a 2-bedroom and it's designated as 2 and you definitely need 3, that's tough, right? But I agree with you. Take away the filter.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's great.
It is.
That's great. And
usually that gets me in trouble.
filters. How about you? Anything? You give some advice?
So I think that, especially on a relocation, you want to get in touch with a realtor as soon as possible to help you on the other side because and visit and get familiar with the area. And then also don't limit yourself in that area too. You know, you might want to do some exploring, find out more that's outside the area.
And if anybody's looking for the villages, Sherri knows everything about it. I'm serious, everything.
I'm a little obsessed.
Well, thank you both, Jessica, Chris, Sherri. Thank you for coming on and sharing some thoughts. And you can find me and you can find Sherri.
I'm still here. I haven't left. Not for a while.
At Coldwell Banker in Leominster. And please subscribe and let us know some other topics that you'll be interested in. But subscribe and watch us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.